Hi everyone, my name is Afrina Nordin and I have a question. Have you ever wondered how did the Malaysian legal system became the way it is today? Today we see a system that blends with and also influenced by English common law, Islamic law, and cultural practices. But none of this happened overnight. In fact, all of this happened because of centuries of change influenced by culture, trade, and most importantly, colonial rule. Now, as we all know, Malaysia was colonized by the British, and English law made a huge impact on the laws that we have today. But how did English law even arrive here, right? Like, what happened to the Malays? What happened to the different cultures that Malaysia has? For example, like the Chinese, the Indians, because they also have their own beliefs and cultures, basically way of living. So what happened to all that? Did they all just, disappear? Well, all the answers to those questions can be found here in Malacca, where it once was a historic port city and the center of trade in the region.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Shan Zafri and today I'm gonna talk about arrival of British. So Malacca was once a powerful Malay kingdom until it fell to the Portuguese in 1511. The Portuguese controlled Malacca for more than a century until 1641 when the Dutch took over. By the late 70s, during the Napoleonic Wars in Europe, the Dutch temporarily handed Malacca to the British in 1795 so that it would not fall into French hands. The British only had it for a short while before returning it to the Dutch in 1818. However, in 1824, under the Anglo-Dutch Treaty, the British and Dutch made a permanent arrangement. The Dutch gave up Malacca to the British, while in exchange, the British handed Bencoolen in Sumatra to the Dutch. After this treaty, Malacca officially became a British possession. 2 years later, in 1826, Malacca, together with Penang and Singapore, was grouped under the Strait Settlement, which were colonies directly under British control. So the arrival of the British in Malacca was not through conquest, but rather through diplomacy and treaty with the Dutch.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel. Today I'm going to talk about the aftermath and effects. So when the British introduced the Charter of Justice, it completely changed how things work here. For the first time, English courts were set up and people had to bring their disputes under English common law instead of relying on Adat and Islamic law. This was a big shift because of the new system focused heavily on trade, contracts and property. Serving the interests of the colonial economy, our communities had to adjust the rules and the process that felt very different from their tradition. At the same time, power started to slip away from the sultans and local, moving instead into the hands of the colonial judges and magistrate. It wasn't just about law. It was about society and authority being shaped before people's eyes. Charter of Justice wasn't just about the new law because it changed every day. Traditional system gave away to common law and power moved local rulers to colonial officials. This remarked the start of a new order that reshaped how society was governed for years to come. Thank you very much.
Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about the implementation of law in Malaya. So the British come to Malaysia for trade and control the Strait of Malacca, taking Penang, Singapore and Malacca as a strait settlement. The Pangkal Treaties of 1874 introduced the resident system where the British official managed administration while Malay ruler kept authority over religion and customs. In 1896, Perak, Selangor, Negeri Sembilan and Pahang become the Federation Malay state under centralized rule, while state like Johor, Kedah remain under advisor. English law shaped the government, trade, taxation and creating modern system. Economically, the British developed tin mining, rubber plantation, and infrastructure, but wealth flowed mainly to them. So migration brought a multi-ethnic society, yet the divide and rule policy deepened the separation. So education benefit only small elite and leaving the rural Malays behind. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'll be talking about the legacy of British rule and its impact on Malaysia's legal system today. Our current legal system is actually a combination of three parts: English common law from the British, Islamic law through the Sharia courts for Muslims, and customary law or adat for certain communities. The British period introduced many things we still use, such as courts, judges, lawyers, and legal concepts like contracts, torts, and evidence. They also made English the language of law, which is still used in our courts today. Even though Islamic law and adat continue in personal and family matters, most commercial and criminal cases are based on English common law. So the British occupation did not just change history, it laid the foundation of the legal system that Malaysia still follows today.
In conclusion, the colonial history of Malacca by the British rule represents a complex transformation that reshapes the region's political and legal playground. Beginning with the Portuguese and Dutch, we can see in the early models of colonial exploitation through the force of accepting religion by the Portuguese and the economic monopoly by the Dutch. The British arrival, however, was quite different. It was not achieved by conquest, but through the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824, which strategically positioned Malacca within the Strait settlements. The aftermath and effects of the shift were huge. The British introduced new administrative power, most notably the Banco Treaty of 1874 and the resident system. This began a systematic transfer of power, where the authority of the Sultan and local leaders were diminished, for the advantage of the British officials. This altered the traditional political landscape in Malaya. The most enduring legacy lies in the implementation of English law. The introduction of English common law and the formal court system replaced the indigenous adat and Islamic legal traditions. Finally, the legacy and the impact of this period were woven into the modern Malaysia that we know today. The British left a dual legacy. They built modern infrastructure and established a structural administration, but they also created social inequality through divisive policies. Most significantly, they laid the foundation of Malaysia's unique legal system, where English common law continues to coexist with Islamic customary law. Therefore, the British chapter in Malacca was not merely a change of rulers, but a fundamental restructuring whose legal and societal echoes are still heard today.